So, ladies and gentlemen, 1974 was a strange year for hockey. The WHA was starting to get more teams. The NHL was getting more franchises. Ken Dryden, pretty well quit the NHL. Montreal Canadiens and a certain team rose to power and defeated the hobbled Boston Bruins with a hobbled Bobby Orr in the finals. But the weirdest thing about 1974 had nothing to do with anything happened on the ice. Today we're going to talk about the curious case of the 1974 secret WHA amateur draft. Not the amateur draft in whole for 74. The secret amateur draft. Okay, bear with me. Now, the 1974 WHA amateur draft was the second amateur draft held by the WHA. The first two rounds of the draft were conducted in secret in February, and only graduating junior players born in 1954 were eligible for selection. The remaining rounds were conducted on May 31st. Now here it gets confusing. Please bear with me. However, the WHA had reached an agreement with the Canadian Amateur Hockey Association between the two draft sessions, which permitted the WHA teams to draft one underage junior player, born in 55 or 56, in either the first or second round. As a result, the WHA renumbered the rounds of the draft, further indicating that the first two rounds in February were now rounds 3 and 4, while the first two rounds conducted in May were rounds 1 and 2, keeping them eligible to draft the underage players. Are you with me here? Okay. First selection was Greg Jolie, who was also taken by Washington. He was selected by Phoenix again in the secret amateur draft, but the first selection in the non-secret amateur draft, number one overall, the third round number one, which was Greg Jolie, was Pat Price. He was selected by the Vancouver Blazers in the what is called the official amateur draft, and Pat Price went on to a nice career with the New York Islanders NHL. So, some of the players taken in the secret draft, some really, really strong products, and a lot of these players went on to the NHL. I would have these players on any team. Okay, bear with me here. Greg Jolie to Phoenix. Indianapolis took Bill Lockheed, Red Wings. Cincinnati, Dave Tiger Williams, which meant he was a third pick of the third round. Cam Connor, taken by Phoenix, who did play in the WHA. Vancouver took Ron Greshner. San Diego took Rick Chartrand. Edmonton took Clark Gillies. Imagine Clark Gillies, an Edmonton owner. Chicago took Paul McIntosh. Houston took John Hughes. Cleveland took Dougie Risebrough. Winnipeg took Danny Gare. Quebec took Alain Daigle. Cleveland, Bruce Affleck. New England, Peter Sturgeon. And Houston, Rick Nantius. Now in the second round, again a secret round, round 2, 16 overall, Brian Kinsella. Then Indy took Bob Bourne. Cincinnati took Dave Inkman. Edmonton had a really good draft. Never signed him, of course. Mike Rogers. Vancouver, Ron Chipperfield. Cincinnati, Jerry Holland. Cincinnati, Bill Evo, and I still do not know why Cincinnati had so many picks in the second round or the fourth round. Phoenix took Brad Winton. Cincinnati then took Mike Palmatier. Then John Stewart. Winnipeg took Gord McTavish. Not McTavish, McTavish. Winnipeg took Ron Ashton. Minnesota took John Paddock, former Flyer. New England took Michael DeZiel. And Houston took Terry Ruskowski, who had a good career in Houston. So let's put this in perspective again. The WHA secret draft was only 2 rounds, but was rounds 3 and 4. Now, if we look at the 1974 amateur draft, official amateur draft for the WHA, again the big players were taken in the rounds. I think in total we had, just looking here again, we had 8 rounds. Actually, more than 8. We had a lot of rounds, ladies and gentlemen. Let me double check here. We had 19 rounds. So technically, in the WHA draft in 74, there were 21 rounds. 21 rounds, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Pat Price did play in the WHA for a short time, but there were some key players taken in that first round. Réal Cloutier for Quebec. Timmy Young in New England went on to a career in the NHL. Brian Trottier, Cincinnati had some great drafts. He took Brian Trottier in the second round, third overall, second round. Brian Ingram, Winnipeg. Charlie Simmer, Cleveland. Mike Eruzione by New England. I think that was a very interesting pick. Barry Legge by Michigan. Legge was a very good player. Peter Driscoll, another great player, Vancouver, in the third round. Gary Lariviere, which very underrated defenseman. Bud Schneider, another 1980 Olympic graduate. One of the best U.S. goalies of all time. Pete LaPresti, taken third round by Houston. You got the fourth round. You got Mike Zook, Jamie Hislop, John Bernier, Ronald Settlebauer. Fifth round, Steve Carlton of the Carlton brothers. Sixth round, Harold Snepps, Michelini, Ed Johnstone, Dave Lumley, Michel Bergeron, Gart Malarchuk, which is Clint's relation here. Seventh round, pretty well the wash there. Jack Carlson actually was taken. Now, Mike McKechnie taken the 8th round, the Montreal Canadian draft pick, the first black to sign a contract with the Montreal Canadiens, first black player. 9th round, you had Michel Lyon. Eddie Miro was taken in the 10th round, went to future success playing with Gretzky. Gary Sargent, very underrated defenseman, taken the 11th round. And as we go down, it was getting kind of dry, but they were trying to build up their minor leagues. Now, by my count,